Good afternoon. I am Valerie R. Austin and the author of the Student's Comprehensive Guide for College and Other Life Lessons. I wrote the book to assist high school students and their parents to navigate the journey of careers and college. I am also the host of the Employer Speaks series, which is designed to highlight different careers and the paths to achieving those careers. Today, I have a very special guest. Nadine Olmann is a certified public accountant, or CPA, who began her accounting career in 1984 in New York at the world's largest professional services firm, Price Waterhouse. Nadine relocated to South Florida in 1993 and began working for the Archdiocese of Miami as a comptroller overseeing the Education Foundation. Years later, Nadine pursued her second master's degree in taxation at Florida International University. In 2007, she started her own CPA firm. Nadine serves on the board of Partners for Self-Employment. She is also a former chapter chair and current board of director of the North Dade South Broward, Florida Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which has a membership of over 700 CPAs. She has approximately 35 years of experience in her field. Nadine is the proud mother of two. Her passions surround financial literacy, cultural awareness, traveling, and food tasting. I look forward to this discussion with Nadine, where we explore the exciting topic of how to become a certified public accountant. Thank you for watching. Good afternoon. I am Valerie Austin, the host of the Employer Speaks series. Today we have a very special guest. Nadine Olmann is a certified public accountant. She began her career in 1984 in New York at the world's largest professional services firm, Price Waterhouse. Nadine moved to South Florida in 1993. Years later, she pursued her second master's degree in taxation at Florida International University. In 2007, she opened her own CPA firm. Nadine is a former chapter chair and current board of director of the North Dade South Florida Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which has a membership of over 700 CPAs. Nadine has approximately 35 years of experience in her field. She's a proud mother of two, and her passions surround financial literacy, cultural awareness, traveling, and food tasting. Welcome, Nadine, to Employer Speaks. We're going to have a great conversation about the career path to becoming a certified public accountant.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Valerie.
Okay, well, let's get started. What is your current title, firm's name, and day-to-day responsibilities as a CPA or certified public accountant?
Okay, well, my current role is I'm the general manager of the Florida location of Bright Tax Solution. We have two offices, one in Texas, which was our original office, and here now in South Florida. So I manage that. Here locally, I manage a group of 5 people.
Fantastic. Now, what role does a CPA play as a fiduciary or trusted financial advisor to clients?
Well, one of the aspects that you play is that you are somebody that you're trained to have an ethical background. You are trained to help clients make trusted financial decisions, be it they're going to buy a house or they're trying to send their child to college, they want to refinance their home. A lot of people are refinancing now because of lower interest rates. So things of that nature, or you're trying to help somebody expand their firm or make their firm larger or merge with another firm. So all of those things a CPA is quite capable of doing.
Okay, now you've answered some of the reasons why someone would employ a CPA, but I'm going to ask you, why are CPAs essential for countless individuals and organizations to prepare and maintain financial documents as well as comply with current laws? Can't they do it themselves? Why do they need a CPA if it's just one person?
Well, CPA is also, we take continual education credits. For the state of Florida, it's 80 credit hours for every 2 years. And we are up to date on what is required, what are the compliances for different industries. So that's why you would need a CPA, because you running your own business or running even a non-for-profit, you may not know what is happening out there in the world. And our job is to make sure that we are aware of what the government is looking for, what they would like to see happen with different industries. And our job is to keep you compliant. So we really like for you to come in. Usually around October is a good time of the year before the year ends, so that we can have a look, a peek, and see what's going on, so we can help you have everything in order before the year ends.
Okay, so you're saying we should come in October. Now, I thought that with the normal interaction with clients is only during tax season. Are you saying it could be monthly, or it could be based on the organization?
Yeah, it can be monthly, it depends on the size of your organization, but even individuals, you file your taxes anywhere between January to April 15th, but if you're on extension, you have, as an individual, up to October 15th. A business has until September 15th. So basically, we usually use October through December as a planning period, planning on what's going to happen, because before the year ends, you can adjust or make corrections, or maybe you've underpaid your taxes, and we can look and say, oh, no, based on the taxes you've already paid in, if you don't pay in anymore, you're going to owe. So that it's not a surprise or a shock, that things are happening. So that's why we tell people October through December is a good time to have a conversation with us. It could be as little as 15 minutes for somebody. It could be more extensive. So come and talk to us. That's the time of the year to talk to us.
Okay. Now, how did you discover accounting as a profession?
Well, I have to say, I do not come from a traditional background. My parents were immigrants from the Caribbean. They came into the United States, and their whole emphasis was become a doctor, or become a lawyer, or become an engineer. Those were the professions that they saw in their home countries that were respected. Nobody ever said, become a CPA. That didn't happen. What really happened in my own case was I was in college, in the first year in college, I wanted to be a business major, but really wasn't certain about what I wanted to do. So I went to the career office, and they had, at the time, it was called a co-op program. And in the co-op program, it paired individuals from a non-business background into where you could have a summer program, and earn some money and work in an industry. At the time, I was living in New York, and I worked for IBM in a summer intern program, and I was an accounting clerk in the payroll area. So, and then I got to see, IBM is obviously a well-known Fortune 500 company, blue chip stock, and I got to see all of these different professionals and in the accounting profession. And then one day I met this woman, and she was a CPA. Now, she was not a Black woman, but she was a woman, and I had never seen it because I know that my field is male dominated. So.
Okay. Well, for those who may not know, a co-op is they still exist, and the comparable thing would probably be an internship. So you had something that was similar to an internship. Okay. So did you have mentors in college that directed you to the types of jobs that you pursue as a CPA, or was that woman that you met a mentor who helped you in that realm?
Right. While doing the internship, the woman that was a CPA, she explained that she had come from, at the time, there were 8 large accounting firms, and Price Waterhouse at the time was considered the gold standard. And she had come from Price Waterhouse. So I had set my sights on Price Waterhouse before Price Waterhouse even knew about me. So that was basically, she had planted that seed. But I knew that I had interviewed, I was fortunate enough to interview with all 8 of them. Mm-hmm. So, and I had 8 offers, so that was great. So.
Okay, so you had a goal, you zeroed in on where you wanted to be, and as luck would happen, you got to that, blessing would happen. You actually got to that point. Yes, blessing would happen. Now, accounting as a college major has a reputation of being tough and challenging. What made you stick with accounting as a degree program?
I think it's like anything. You have to persevere. Was I the A student in accounting? No, not necessarily. There were classes that I found quite challenging, but it's a question of language. For example, as I explained to you, I don't come from a business background. So when people were talking about things like, what is somebody's basis in the stock or basis in the business? I was like, what the heck is this basis business? And all it means is like, what did the person pay for? Okay, if you're talking about stock, what did they pay for the stock? And what was the fees that the brokerage company charged them? That would be a stock. But what about, we're talking about an equipment, right? An AC unit that goes into a building. Well, okay, you buy the AC unit, right? You go in and you buy it, a big unit. Maybe it costs $4,000 or $5,000, but then you got to have somebody to install that unit, right?
Mhm.
So that the installer, okay, I mean, he pulls a permit, he does this, that, and the other thing, and he spends maybe another $2,000. So now you're up to $6,000. So that is the basis, what it took to have that unit and to place it into the business in working order.
So in other words, you have to know the jargon, you have to know the language, and that's basically what being an accountant is, knowing the language to the extent that you can explain it to your client, and also if you have to explain it to the IRS.
Correct. It's knowing the wording, okay? And that's basically what it is. So once you get over that fear, because when people were talking, and there were students who had actually parents who were either accountants or had family members that were accountants, and I just like had to study. I had to memorize. I did flashcard and memorize stuff, So yeah, so perseverance. You can't give up. When I went into the profession, there was very few women too, very, very few. And we've done better with women than we've done with males, Black males, but they're there. I was looking at the statistics and seeing that there's about over 600,000 CPAs in the entire United States. 2% of that are Blacks. So that's about 13,000. That's not a lot of people.
That is definitely not a lot of people. As a matter of fact, what you're basically saying, I was looking at something called the catalyst.org that stated in 2018 that 71% of all professionals at CPA were white. And in April 2021 Journal of Accountancy estimated only 2% of CPAs are Black and only 1% partners at CPAs are African American. Why do you think, and women, why do you think it's so few in that area?
Well, I can speak to one of the, a CPA does a plethora of things, a broad base of things. CPA can do reviewing financial statements for publicly traded companies, which is that the audit, compliance, that's what people think of. The CPA comes in as the auditor. In that context, that's not an IRS auditor. That's an auditor that big firm, like for example, Amazon will hire a team of, it will hire a big accounting firm to come in and audit its books. So when it's putting its numbers on the stock exchange, its financial statements are out there. People say, oh, that is inaccurate. That's what the CPA is there to say. Is this accurate and complete? Okay. They can't say that it's without fraud. They can say it's accurate and complete, because fraud is something totally different. People have a misconception.
But before we go to that point, so for the high schoolers and college students out there, again, why do you think it's because there's those two different realms? There's the public and then there's the private sides of CPA?
There's a public CPA that's doing audits of publicly traded companies and working with the SEC. That's the watchdog over that. Okay. And then there's the IRS that's looking over individuals and businesses and saying, are you compliant with your taxes? Are you paying your fair share? Are you following the tax code? So that's another aspect. My business, I began in the area of audit, financial statement audits, and then transitioned into my own tax practice. Okay. So those are two different things. And private sector accounting is any accountant that they may be a CPA looking at the internal documents of that business. So those are very good avenues. As a matter of fact, the largest employer of accountants in the entire United States is the IRS. People don't really.
Okay. Okay. So what do you find enjoyable and fulfilling about being a CPA?
Well, I find that one of the most enjoyable things is people don't expect me, someone who looks like me, to be a CPA. That's number one. And number two is it's enjoyable to be able to speak intelligently and tell people, look, this is a way to manage money. One of the biggest hurdles we have as African Americans is knowing how to manage money and being financially literate. Like, in other words, we have to learn that certain things have value that go up and certain things that we buy don't have value and go
depreciate.
Down. Right, appreciate. That's just another jargon. But we say just go down, okay? But in the accounting term is depreciation. For example, when you go in and you buy a car, one of the first things I find, a lot of African American males particularly, they want that Chevy Impala because it's the, it's the hot ride, the whip as the kids call it. But they don't realize the minute that they take off that whip off the dealer's lot, it loses 30% of value. And if they realize that, maybe they wouldn't do it. The better investment is maybe to buy. Maybe you can't afford a house as house prices have gotten very expensive. Start small, buy a condo.
Mhm.
Myself, when I began, I bought a condo for $44,000 in Florida, believe it or not. And now they're worth over 200, it's over worth 225,000 over. So, it takes time. So that's an asset that I bought low and now it's high. You could sell high and bank it out and then do something else with it. So
basically CPAs are that conduit of knowledge that can help anyone to make sound financial decisions, taxation, depreciation, whatever, about what they need to do with their money.
Exactly. So I would also say one of the things that I'm always happy to do is help students make decisions about student loans, because because of a lot of minorities are limited in the resources they have that their parents may not be able to help them. I tell people, what's the return on investment? What's the ROI on this? Some people say, oh, well, I've got to go to this school. And when you have to look at the cost of that school, not just the tuition, but the cost. What does it cost for books? What does it cost for me to eat? What does it cost if I'm not working? Okay. And if the cost is so high, as opposed to the job that you can potentially get, then that's not a good return on the investment. Maybe start out at the community college. There's nothing wrong with that. Because at the end, okay, even if you become a doctor, nobody says, okay, well, what did you study at, being, did your 2 years at Tallahassee University or whatever the community college is? Nobody says that,
They just care about the degree.
Exactly. So there's nothing wrong with community college. We have this mindset that we think, oh, if it's not a 4-year college, and then we think, oh, if it's not a private college. No, in the end, it's to get the qualifications that let you the entry position into the job.
So as a CPA, you're telling people what are the value of particular things that they do with their money. Now, let me ask you this. What is the work environment like, especially during tax season? Is it in an office environment? Do you have a bunch of deadlines? Is it traveling, long hours? What can you tell someone about what it is to be a CPA?
Okay, well, I can tell you prior to the pandemic and now during the pandemic.
Okay.
So let's give you both aspects. One of the great things that we found out as CPAs is we don't need an office. Okay, I found out that I manage 5 people. Everybody works remotely. Even the IRS agents that we talk to are working remotely, and they work for the IRS. So remote working, because we are looking at numbers and paperwork and documentation, has been facilitated. We use technology, which we use today is things in the cloud, putting things in the cloud, that makes it easier. Prior to the pandemic, yes, we were all confined in an office all together, and people would bring in documents, and we would they drop them off, or the mail would drop them off, and we'd scan it, and then we would disseminate work. Well, now, during the pandemic, we've had to adjust ourselves. Yes, we get your documents. We tell you to upload it to a client portal. We tell you to, if those people are not comfortable, fax it into us, and then we upload it into a portal. And then we have tools that help us see what's the priority, when it came in, when's the deadline, when it has to be done. It's one of the things that we do, and it gives you flexibility. So my office is driven as results. I don't care if you're working overnight or during the day, as long as you're meeting the deadline that we've agreed upon to service that client.
So it's flexibility in being able to manage that paperwork in a way that you don't necessarily have to be in the office. You could actually be at home doing it because, as you stated, it's a bunch of numbers. Now, is there a standard software or technology that you guys use as CPAs? Like, I know you said the cloud, but like MS Excel, Intuit, QuickBooks, what?
We see it all, I would say, as accountants. Intuit is the largest provider, and this is not a plug for them.
No, of course not. No, of course not.
Intuit just happens because they're marketing, they brand their product well. A lot of people have gone and off the shelf, what we call off the shelf accounting, and it sets it up. Now, sometimes that's why we say come in before it, because sometimes we get the books and we're like, okay, well, what is this?
Where did this come from?
It really doesn't make any sense. I can give a little quick snippet if you want. I had a guy who was selling jewelry. So, jewelry, it costs things, it wasn't, a high-end jewelry, but it was jewelry. Okay. And he said, okay, my inventory is going down. Okay. So my sales, but he was posting the entries the incorrect way. So at the end, he had negative number. So how could you have sold? He sold thousands of items and he had a negative number. So that couldn't be, because I said, okay,
red flag.
Scrap that. Okay, red flag, scrap that. Go on to an Excel spreadsheet and add up all of the sales that you've given. And then we cross-reference this. We tell them, okay, give us your bank. We ask them all the sales, where are they going? Into this bank account. I want 12 months of bank statements, and we cross-reference. Did the amount of sales equal the amount that went into the bank? That was our check. And once we had that, then we went from there. And it was, that was a way. He had to spend time because we couldn't do that.
And without you, he wouldn't have known what was exactly going on that was wrong. So
Yeah.
after 35 of years in the field, you're a self-employed business owner, accountant. How is that different than when you worked as an accountant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, that's a name now, a professional services firm? What's the difference?
I would think there's a big difference. Pricewaterhouse has, at its level, these are clients, for example, back more than 35 years ago. If you were a client of Pricewaterhouse in the tax department, it was $1,000 an hour for a professional.
You sound like a lawyer.
They can charge their prices because they're the clientele that they have. They're actually very, very wealthy individuals, and they go to them and they do tax strategy all year long for them. So you may be responsible only for one line on the tax return, as opposed to as a private person in my own practice, I'm responsible for helping the client get all of the supporting documents that match so that it fits on the entire tax return.
All right.
So that's if I could give the difference. And I'm able to help people and pay it forward. Little things that maybe will not work for a big person who's wealthy, but can work. There are strategies for the middle class, like if you own your own business, hire your kids. And there's a way to do that. Get a tax write-off and start a Roth IRA for them.
Uh-oh, wait a minute. You just said something to save money. Why would you want to hire your kids of all things?
It saves you money and it's a good tax deduction, but that's a conversation for another day.
Oh, that's a wait out. You want to contact Nadine if you want to talk about something like that. Oh, okay, I understand. Now, you have a master's degree in taxation from Florida International University. Why did you decide to specialize in that area? Are there other areas of specialization as a CPA, like maybe personal finance?
Yeah, CPAs have several designations that they can get in, but I decided to do something in tax because tax is an area that no matter if the economy is good or if the economy is bad, you must pay taxes. So there's an old saying that says death and taxes are forever. And even in death, there are taxes that need to be paid. So I decided to take an aspect where I could understand, because how is tax legislation? It is legislation. It's written by your legislator on the federal level. It is your Congress people, and then the Congress and the Senate hash together a bill, and then you have to be able to read the law and understand the law. The IRS is there. It is the interpreter or the executor of the laws that Congress has written and how it's applied. So tax code, it may not make sense to certain people on certain things. Like, for example, what can be a second home? A boat can be a second home. If it has 3 elements, it has to have an area where you can cook, which is called the galley. It has to have the place you can sleep. I think that's called the berth. Don't quote me on that because I'm not really a boater. And then the other is the head, and I think that has to be the bathroom area. So if it has those 3 elements, if the boat is being financed, that can be deducted as you would a second home or first home, the mortgage interest on that.
Okay, so you specialize in taxation because I can see your eyes light up that you enjoy searching for those answers to those particular questions. But as you stated, there are other areas. How do you decide, or how does an individual decide what area to specialize in? Do they talk to professors, academic advisors, career center? Who exactly would they go to talk about something like that?
Okay, for myself, I would always had an interest in tax. While doing my master's in tax, I really delved in. I wrote what's called a white paper about hiring your children. So I became kind of an expert in that. And then, and it was really good that I could apply it not only in my own life. I hired my 11-year-old at the time, and she's over 30. She's actually in the profession as well. So I hired her, and I was able to create a Roth IRA by doing this master's in tax. So it was well worth, at the time, the $15,000 that I paid.
So
Yeah.
so if you're a student and you're thinking about some type of specialization, it's basically what piques your interest, and you're
Right.
doing the research to finding out what are the specialties and how long would it take for you to get that specialization, basically.
Yeah, there's I know that a lot of CPAs have gone into I don't think it's called PFS, Professional Financial Services, which is where they are financial planning with estates and retirement funds. And so there's a big specialization. That was really never my interest because I knew that taxes is something that had to be paid, and people, particularly small business owners, as I stated, my parents were from the Caribbean, so they always had their own little small business. And whenever they went to the tax people, it was always like this, oh my God, but my
Put all
parents
those receipts together.
she walks of receipts. My parents were one of those people. So it was, and I said to myself, wow, why was it so hard for them? And I wanted to understand that. And there are a lot of deductions for businesses because the tax code has a general rule that says anything that is all that is necessary and purposeful, what you really need to make the business run, if it's a legitimate expense, except when the code says you can't do it. So it's kind of knowing what is the general and then finding if something says, nope, this is not applicable to you.
Okay, it makes sense to me. So let me go through high school preparation for something like this in terms of accounting. What level of math should a high school student take to prepare for their college accounting courses?
Okay, I would say you have to have a good basic general math understanding. Like, in other words, people think, oh, if you're CPA, you have to be a whiz in math, like pre-calculus. No, you have to have a general good understanding. Like, you have to understand how to do percentage, how to do ratios, because those are things that are important. You have to do decimals. You have to, because, when you're looking at a number, you have to say, what's this placing of this number? So you have to have, I would say, first, a general good understanding of basic math, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. And then the other, maybe a little bit of pre-algebra, not even algebra itself, but pre-algebra. Those are the two things that I would say. You don't have to be a strong math student. People have this, thinking that you're brainiacs if you're CPAs. That's a nice thing to think. But no, we are following, if you're in tax, we're following the law. So basically, what the law says. So you don't have to be afraid of those things. So I would say having a good understanding, maybe a co-op program or quote unquote called internship program would give you exposure. There's many organizations that hire young people throughout the year. So it gives you exposure, what it takes to keep documents for people.
Now,
what is it?
If you're a young person and you're interested, as you stated, in terms of just learning a little bit about what the math is, because there's always calculators, but should they consider jobs or internships such as an auditing clerk, accounting assistant, a bookkeeper? You said you had a little bit of that in your background.
I did. My own daughter, she was an accounting clerk in my office, and at the time, she's now 30. So to give you a little perspective, she was 11. And we used to pay bills using a physical check for the business. So I would have her, she had good penmanship. I would have her write the date, write out a check. Okay, we didn't use ATM so much. You'd write out a check to FP&L, which is the Florida Power and Light people. Write out the check to renew the business license of the business. And then she would have to use the checkbook here's the balance and go down, subtraction. Money came in, she would stamp the back of the check and prepare the deposit tickets. So she had real experience and she knew how to read when she got to college. She went to Florida State. And one of the things that she was so shocked that so many kids would, by using ATM cards, would overdraft.
That's a bad thing because you're paying $35 each time that happens. Ooh, okay. Depending on the bank.
Right. And then, so she was so shocked because she knew that if I use this ATM, that's a deduction from the checkbook. So she knew that, and that was some basic course. And we pride ourselves, neither of us have ever bounced a check. So I'm very happy now.
And truthfully, I'm a proponent of that, in that if you're a parent, you have to make your child understand where the money comes from. It doesn't come from a machine. It comes from you putting in 8 to 10 hours of work and putting that check into the checking account.
Right. A lot of young people, because I teach prior to pandemic, I would go into the high schools and teach literacy, financial literacy. That's my passion, particularly in the inner city schools. And a lot of kids had no concept. They were just thinking, if you put the card in, the money spat out. They didn't realize that somebody has to be putting their paycheck or transferring, as you're a student and you don't have any money, somebody, your parent, is transferring money to you.
I hope that you enjoyed part 1 of this interview about the career opportunities for a certified public accountant. Stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for watching.